Like we are live. Looks like we're live. Fantastic. Good evening to those of you on the mainland. Aloha from Hawaii. So, would love to hear from you as you're logging on. Say hi, say hello. We're going to go ahead and get started and jump in. So, tonight's lesson is going to be really powerful, and I think that you're going to find a lot of value in this because we're talking about why stopping is the best way to start. You may be thinking to yourself, sounds a little crazy, a little backwards, right? Well, yes, it may go against the grain a little bit, and that's probably why a lot of people aren't doing it. But aloha. Okay, so we're going to really talk about the art and science of what's happening in your brain and in your body. So, are you one of those people who uses sheer force to create change, to create things and happen in your life? So, for example, you've been told you barrel your way through things, no matter how hard it is. Or do you shove down your feelings inside instead of dealing with them? Yeah, so what about convincing yourself you're happy when you're actually not? And you're trying to think, well, maybe I'm happy, maybe I'm not, but you're really just not going to deal with it. So maybe you're just status quo and you're just kind of living day to day. Well, these are all related. So part of what we're going to talk about tonight is, can you relate to this feeling of being overwhelmed or maybe even brain fog? Sometimes you can't even feel the overwhelm because you're literally just so foggy and you can't really think straight. Or perhaps you get frustrated really easily or you lash out at your kids or, something happens and you snap. And then by the end of the day, like you lay down in bed and you're thinking like, I don't have the energy to take a bath to take care of myself. I don't have the energy to like all of these things that run through your mind of things that you would love to do. You're like, I just don't have the energy to do it. So you literally go to bed and you wake up and do the same routine all over again. How many of you can relate? So you feel like you're living the same day on repeat, right? And another thing that I see a lot too is like some of this will start to manifest into like headaches, backaches, migraines, like physical pain somewhere, skin conditions. And then another thing that comes up too is like my husband and I were talking about this earlier, and I just have to mention is that learning from your mistakes, right? So you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, and keep making the same mistakes. It could be something little that you're doing over and over and over again, but all of it comes back to the same reason. It's because you're trying to push your way through, and it's creating stress in your life. So what does all of this have to do with each other? Um, it's all related to force. And if you think about stress, if you're pushing up against something and your head's down and you're trying to work your hardest at do something, right? Like what is this doing? This is creating pressure. Pressure is a stress. It's a stressor in your life. So each time you try to push harder, what happens? You amplify the stress. So what happens is say you've got a bucket and you're pouring stress into it, right? You're pouring stress, pouring stress, pouring stress. Let's push harder, push harder, push harder. What happens? The bucket overflows eventually, right? The bucket can only withstand so much. You go to bed, kind of drains a little bit of that, but it doesn't drain enough. Because what happens is you wake up and your bucket's probably 3/4 of the way full already. So then you snap at something that happens. Your child says something back to you or asks a question. You think to yourself, I've answered that a million times already. Or with a toddler, they say the same thing over and over and over. Your threshold for being able to deal with that is not very high because you've got so much built up inside that it's actually doesn't have anywhere to go. So if you're used to this persistent stress of trying to push through things, what's happening is your body is becoming acclimated to the stress and it starts to shut down in some ways because of chemicals. It's a chemical reaction. This is the science to why you should slow down if you want to start something. So let's talk about this a little bit. Persistent stress, which is common in our world and in our society, persistent ongoing stress, a boss that you struggle with, a job that you don't like, kids trying to homeschool during the pandemic. It's like all of these things start to pile on one another. And if you're not dealing with it and you're not emptying your bucket, they just keep piling, right? So persistent stress is something that as human beings, we deal with Almost every human being deals with this. But no species is built to survive constant stress. Our bodies physically were not built and are not capable of withstanding this much stress. So what's happening? You're seeing heart disease. You're seeing all of these diseases and things that are taking over our world and killing people because it's cancers are just running rampant. It's because of stress. It's because of all of these things we're putting into our bodies, and our bodies just aren't meant to handle it. So if you're living in stress, you're living in survival. So if you are one of those people that bears your way through and your head's down, I can get it done, you are living in survival mode. It's nearly impossible to make positive changes in your life when you're in survival mode. I mean, think about it. It's a predator-induced response. Survival mode it means your body thinks that you're going to get eaten by a tiger. There's no difference. Your mind can't tell the difference between a real event and an imagined one. So that fight or flight response, which you're feeling, your body thinks that you're going to die. So what does it do? It mobilizes and it sends all of that energy to make sure that you're reactive. So we're going to talk about some of this system. So the reason why this is so important is because when you're living in stress, your body physically, you're trying to start something new. It physically can't. So what happens? Your sympathetic nervous system takes over. Your respiratory rate increases. Why? Because if you need to run away really quick from a lion and not get eaten, you need all that energy to go to your respiratory system. Your heart rate increases so you can run and hide really quickly. Your pupils dilate so that you can see better. Your blood flow is shunted actually from your external organs so that you can move more quickly if you need to. And your glucose is released to make more energy available to your cells. These are the things that are happening in your body because of the flight or fight response. Your body doesn't know the difference between a boss yelling at you in your face and a tiger coming and going to eat you, so your body reacts the exact same way. Now what happens if you're being threatened by a tiger and in the real world, if there's an animal running away from a tiger, what happens? They run away. Say it's a deer, they run away, and then they get away, if they get away, and then they relax. And everything goes back to homeostasis. Everything goes back to normal. They don't live in that stress response. They can't. Our bodies do. And we're expecting our bodies to stay in this heightened level of awareness without even realizing the consequences of what it's doing. So I know I'm kind of breezing through a lot of this. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. And hi to everybody that's been logging on. Just going to keep digging into this. And again, if you have any questions about anything that we're talking about, how this affects your body, leave them in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. So when we talk about why this is so important to making changes in your life, what do you think all of this does to your cognitive processing? Your cognitive processing is your ability to rationally think through ideas, think through new processes. So when all of this is happening and you're in survival mode, do you think your brain's going to be able to process some new ideas and new thoughts? No. No. So that's a big reason why when you want to create change, or if you want a new career, or you want a new life process, you've got to be able to slow down enough to ask the questions and be able to process it. And when you're running in this push mode, your body is such a heightened state of awareness, it physically cannot process some of these thoughts and some of these things. You may think that you can do a little bit of both because you're surviving throughout the day, but I challenge you to ask yourself, how often do you forget things? How often do you fail to learn from your mistakes and the things you're doing over and over? It's because your cognitive brain is not functioning as well as it could be to be able to internalize those things. You're not really internalizing it because you've got your chemicals in your body are just running like crazy. So when you're in this state, you're in survival mode. So are you living in a state of stress? And the simple question is, why can't you just turn it off? Just turn it off, right? Can you just turn it off? Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Our bodies have been conditioned to do this, and our bodies are very efficient once we've taught them how to do something. So where does this all start? It starts with your thoughts. Thoughts lead to feelings, lead to actions. So remember this. If you can, write it down, scribble it down. Thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings lead to actions. So if you're trying to create change from shifting your actions, it's going to be really hard. Because what's happening is you're battling 95% of your conscious, which is dictated over here by your thoughts, and your subconscious. And your subconscious just doesn't switch either. So you can't just say, okay, I'm going to change my thoughts and we're good to go. If you've tried that, you've tried new diets, you've tried new patterns, you've tried new things, it's kind of hard, right? Because these are difficult things to change, but they can be changed. So if you think about it, 90% of your thoughts are on repeat. 90%. Let me repeat that. 90% of your thoughts are on repeat. And if our thoughts create our feelings and they create our actions, how are you going to feel tomorrow? How are you going to act tomorrow? Probably the same as you did today. So if you have these ideas and these grander notions of things that you want to do without a plan, it's going to be really hard to get there. And that's why so many people fail to create long-term change, because they don't understand the reason why and understand the context of why these things aren't working. So if you think about it, your physiological state can be thrown off by simple thinking. So your body has become adjusted to this emotional pattern, and what it does is every time you tell this story or every time you feel this, it reinforces it in your body. Your body is a brilliant machine. It wants to be energy sustaining. So one of the things that it does is it makes sure things are super efficient. So if you're doing the same habit over and over and over, it becomes very efficient at this habit. And what you're doing is you're unintentionally anchoring stress into your brain and into your body. So then it becomes harder to overcome. So when you go, and your head's down, force, you're reinforcing all of this stuff. And then cognitively, your brain's just like, meh, I'm out of here. Brain fog, all of those things, that headache, back pains, exhaustion, frustration, resentment, all of these things are just remnants of like your body's just trying to survive. Like, get out of survival, folks, moms. Like, come on. So, one of the things we got to talk about. Let me get back over because I have to go back. Courtney, so good to see you. I know, I wish we had a subconscious wish. I wish it were that easy, but we do know that it's possible, even though it isn't easy. And practice makes permanent. I absolutely love that, because it's the repetition that anchors it. It's that repetition that creates the new patterns in the brain that we're looking for. So it's what repetitions, I keep hitting this, what repetitions do you want to create? So a really beautiful thing, someone, actually Joe Dispenza, I was reading a book of his the other day, and if you haven't listened to Joe Dispenza, he's absolutely fantastic. And he talked about being addicted to stress. And at first, my thought was, well, how could you be addicted to stress? But then I started to think about it. Do you refuse to slow down? Do you refuse to ask for help? So, these things aren't you being a martyr. It's you're addicted to the stress and not willing to let go. And I think it's really hard for a lot of people to accept, because, we have all these stories attached to these things that for reasons we don't want to ask for help. But at the end of the day, your body is so addicted to having the stress reaction that you just keep doing it. So the only way to stop it is to slow down enough to realize and think to yourself, I've got to stop. Because at the end of the day, your cognitive processing still is not going to work, right? So the most you can do is say, stop, slow down. Let's let this settle a little bit so we can actually think about it. I was emotionally addicted to stress for a long time, more than half of my life. So I want to tell you a story. When I was in my early 20s, and I've shared this before, but I came from a childhood of emotional trauma. So not very set up for success in the beginning. I was very insecure, terribly shy. I'm an introvert. I hated myself. Going into relationships and friendships, and my high school best friend passed away in my early 20s, and less than 2 years later, my fiance passed away. Both of them in car accidents, both very traumatic events. So 2 very traumatic events in my life, on top of a very unstable childhood experience, led me down this path of, if you thought I was addicted to my stress, I was way addicted to my stress. And I would tell anybody that would listen to my sob story, because I would repeat that sob story over and over and over. It was my story. It was who I was. I had lost two people very close to me. I was depressed. I was anxious. I started getting terrible skin conditions. I would get cystic acne, and it was so painful. And chronic back pain, IBS. I had ulcers in my stomach. Like, you name it, I had it. And my body was just like reacting to all these terrible, terrible stressors that were in my life. And then like I said, I was telling everybody. So anybody that would listen, I would tell my sob story. Well, every time I told that story, I was firing the same circuits in my brain. The same. I was practicing, like Courtney was talking about. Like, I was practicing my sob story. That's what was becoming more permanent in my brain. And every time I told that story, it reinforced, those emotions would come up in my body, and those feelings would come up again and again and again. And it led me to a suicide attempt. And when I was hospitalized, it was the first time I was forced to slow down. I was put on, I think it was a 5150 hold is what it's called, where I was not allowed to leave. I didn't have a choice. I had to be there. I was forced to slow down. I was forced to think. They asked questions, and I started researching how my thoughts impacted my feelings and impacted my actions. And once I started to realize that, like, wait, I can think something differently, like, maybe I shouldn't be telling myself how much I hate myself and how much of a victim I am to my story, and all these bad things happen to me, like, oh, woe is me, like, why is my life so terrible? And then something happened, something shifted once I started. It took a couple of years to really figure it out, but practicing day after day after day of coming up with these affirmations of, like, I am worthy, I am worthy, I am worthy, telling myself that day after day after day, because deep down it was hard to believe that. But once I started to shift those thoughts, I started to shift the beliefs, I started to shift the actions. So going from this victim story to being a victor and the hero of my own journey, it's like, I was talking to a doctor on the phone today, and he was impressed with my story, and I'm like, that's just so cool. It's really cool to be able to share that and to know, like, oh my gosh, you can do this, you can do this, because it once you start to slow down, you can start to ask the questions. So what all of this comes to is, what changed my life was how my thoughts impacted my life, and understanding how my thoughts impacted it. So what did I change? I changed how I talk to myself. I started to ask new questions. I hired a life coach, which I fully believe saved my life. Besides therapy and medication and a life coach, like, the combination of the three was just, it was absolutely life changing. So I went from literally filing disability, because my anxiety and depression were so bad. I am not kidding. I can remember sitting at the table with the woman filing for my disability. Just, I couldn't even think. I couldn't do anything. I was hyperventilating because I didn't want to be out in public. Like, it was so bad. I went from that to actually leading a team at a corporate 50 company. Corporate 50, like one of the top 50 companies. It was mind-blowing to me. It was a huge goal and aspiration of mine to work my way up the corporate ladder, because I couldn't even hold down a job before, but I did. I led a startup team from basically zero to multi-million dollars in revenue. I have a successful business. I'm happy. I'm balanced. So you can see that this journey, this shift, is because I started thinking differently, and I started telling myself different things. I didn't take some magical pill. It was literally all in my head. So I wanted to share too that, because you can have the things that you want, you just have to be able to believe that they can happen for you, and shift your thoughts. So I wanted to share another thing too. One of the things that I always dreamed about doing was meditating on the beach. Now I get to. Last night I actually went down to the beach. The moon was shining. It was beautiful. It was at nighttime. The sun was setting and the moon was out, and I went and meditated on the beach and did yoga. Life can be what you want it to be. So, what to do differently? The first step is awareness. When your brain's kind of all in this muck and messiness, you can't just all of a sudden shift to, I'm going to solve the world's problems. This is going back to working your way and barreling through things. Like, stop. Open your awareness to realize you need to do something differently. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yes, I'm probably talking to you. If this resonates with you, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if these thoughts got you to where you're at, what do you need to shift in order to get to where you want to be? And if you could accomplish something in life with the same level of energy that you're putting into your stress and holding on to this anxiety and holding on to barreling through, if you could shift that energy to creating a life of your dreams, like what do you think you could actually accomplish? It's just a matter of shifting that energy. The energy has to go somewhere. And someone once told me, you can stress and worry about it, but it's not going to change anything. Because does worrying really help things? No, because it's in your head. So if you could shift that energy, why not shift it to something that's productive and meaningful? And do you think that it's possible that the new thoughts that you create could lead to new choices and lead to new behavior and outcomes? I'm proof. I'm proof that it does. I'm proof that it does because I came from such a place of just, I didn't think I was going to make it. And now I'm here. So no matter where you're at in your story, where you're at in your process, just know that it takes time. You will get there. And don't give up. And just know that it's that opening awareness of knowing that you can shift your thoughts to create the life that you love. So let me ask you a question. Would you prefer to build a house with or without a blueprint? I'm just going to assume a blueprint because I would want a blueprint, and I think most people would want a blueprint. So if you're doing something that you've always done and it's not working, it's trying to try something new. So if you were to try it, to learn a new language or learn something entirely new, you would go back to school or you would get a system to help you, or would you wing it? If you're winging it, you're probably one of those people that's up against, a lot more stress than you need to in life. So this is one of those release things, let things go. So one of the things that I want to tell you is having a system to do this is going to get you to where you want to be a lot quicker, because what happens is you remove some of those blind spots. You don't know the right questions to ask. Anytime that I've started a new job, that's one of the things that I always say is I don't know what I don't know. I don't know the questions sometimes that I need to ask. So you look to people that have been there before. You look to people that have the experience in order to help you. So find people, find resources. If it's this group, if it's me, great. If it's not, that's great too. Like find a resource that resonates with you to help you on your journey. Because remember this, 95% of your thoughts are dictated by your subconscious. 95%. And your subconscious isn't something you just switch and it does what you want it to do. Your subconscious is extremely complex. So what I encourage you to do is stop wasting your time. I'm begging you, stop wasting your time, because a lot of people think that slowing down causes wasted time. It's not, it's the opposite. You're wasting your time by using force. Like I said, you've got your bucket. I wish I had a bucket. And you go to sleep at night and that bucket is 3/4 of the way full. You wake up and you've got 25% capacity to deal with things. 25% capacity to deal with all the stressors that are going to be thrown at you in your day. What if instead of going to bed at 75% full, you go to bed and maybe you can start getting it down to 50%. You can get it down to 25%. It gives you that much more capacity to be able to deal with the things that are coming at you during the day. It gives you much more ability to process through your day. So essentially by slowing down, by taking, even if it's 10 minutes a day for meditation, even if it's taking 10 minutes, is 10 minutes worth an extra 25 or 50% of being able to deal with stress? That's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. So instead of thinking that self-care and all of these things are optional, it is necessary. It's absolutely critical and necessary for you to be able to process and to be able to function and to live a happy life. If you want to keep living status quo, if you want to keep living day by day, if you want to keep living by force, go for it. I mean, you have every right to. But if you're here and you're watching, I think that you're probably looking for something different, because life can be a lot easier, life can be a lot happier, and life can be a lot better. You don't have to be triggered by all of these things. You don't have to feel like you're wasting your time. But it starts with slowing down and opening your awareness. So just remember, your brain can't process when it's full of stress. It's physically not able to do what you want it to do. So you can keep trying all you want, but I'm just telling you it's not going to work. So, big picture, your whole life can be changed by slowing down, because you can get to where you want to be by taking small steps to get to where you want to be, to slow your brain down. Little picture, if you're frustrated with your toddler, or you're frustrated with somebody, or you're angry with your boss, stop. Take a deep breath, slow down. Have you ever noticed how that helps you? If you haven't tried that before, I highly encourage you to try that, because what happens is your body, it's full of stress. Even in that just a little moment of deep breath, like, you can decrease that stress level a little bit. So if you're rethinking career options, which I know a lot of moms are, because what happened with this pandemic is you started to reconsider. Maybe you want to be with your kids more. Maybe you want more flexibility. Oh, maybe you know you deserve more money. You deserve to be treated with more respect from your boss. And you're starting to really think, well, wow, life's really short. Life is really precious. Maybe I should be doing something that actually makes me happy. And if that's how you're feeling, then this is where you've got to start. You've got to start by getting a process in place and starting to reduce some of that stress. But let me tell you this. This might sound simple, changing your thoughts to adjust your actions, right? That sounds simple enough, but it's not easy. It does take time. It does take effort. Um, my changing my thinking changed my life, and I know a lot of people who have been in the same boat. And I will make sure that I have someone that I want to invite um, in the next couple of weeks to come on, a client that I've worked with, and I've just been so proud of the work that she's done. And I think that her sharing her story, even in the 8-week program that we've worked together, just the shifts that she's made from some of these changes. Some people are able to make the shifts more quickly than others, and she's been one of those just right out of the gate. Incredibly ambitious, incredibly motivated, just knew that she needed to change something, and she's willing to do that hard work to get outside of her comfort zone to make shit happen in her life. So, what if we could rewire your brain and change it so that your efficiency mode was calm and collected, and it was a state of joy and a state of not being triggered all the time? So your body, we mentioned, it's made for efficiency. So things, neurons that fire together wire together. So what you do is you repattern your brain for calmness, for collection, for rational thinking, for dreaming, for visioning, for all of these things that actually bring you more happiness, instead of a pattern of stress and chaos and frustration and resentment and anger and fear. The list goes on and on. So it's a dichotomy of, do you want more love in your life, or do you want more fear in your life? If you want more love in your life, it's about slowing down. And it takes a mindful effort to do that. So if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments below. Again, I want to say hi to everybody that's here. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, so I have designed a program, as I kind of mentioned. It's an 8-week program, and I'll go ahead and mention it for those of you, that loved tonight's lesson, and you want to know more, right? Because you're thinking, yeah, I know I want some change, and I'm ready to kickstart something, but maybe you don't know what it is. So I actually developed. I have a couple of different options, but primarily my 8-week option. Designed really to help you kickstart change. It gives you those foundational tools to help you figure out what questions to ask. It helps you figure out what exactly do you want. I still have clients nowadays that I talk to that say, I just don't know what I want to be when I grow up. They've got kids and they're 40-year-old mom. Like, it's more common than you think for people not to know what they want. So this 8-week program is designed to help you figure out what you want, to help you adjust to some of these thoughts. Like, how do you shift some of these thoughts, and how do you do it in a way that's sustainable and long term? Because often what will happen is, for example, you start a new diet. What happens a month later? You give up and go back to the old results, right? It's the same thing with a New Year's resolution. Why do so many New Year's resolutions fail? It's because you're trying to change an action without shifting the thoughts. So your thoughts aren't aligned to what you want. The long-term results are just not going to be there. So the program is it's the art and science of creating this shift, creating this the change that you want in your life to create your dreams. So the program is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But it's for women and specifically mothers. I built it for mothers because I feel so passionate about helping mothers give their kids a better future and a better life that they deserve. Um, you've got to be motivated. You've got to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone to create change, and you've got to be wanting more for yourself. So, if that is you, I'm actually doing starting a special, and I'm offering a 30-minute coaching session and a copy of my workbook. So it's called "Becoming Stronger Than Your Circumstances." So the 30-minute coaching session and the workbook, Becoming Stronger Than Your Circumstances, you can get for $30. So if you do the replay of this, I'll still make sure that it's available for you as well. But what you're going to do is, if you want to take advantage of this, go ahead and text the phrase, "I'm ready." I want you to text that phrase. Let's see. And I want you to text it to this phone number. So I'll go ahead and make sure that I leave this in the comments as well. But text it to this phone number, 305-741-4321. So what you're going to do is text that phrase, "I'm ready," include your first and your last name so I know who I'm talking to. We'll get you set up with a 30-minute coaching session and, like I said, a free copy of the Becoming Stronger Than Circumstances workbook. So it's a $130 value. You're getting it for $30, and you'll get some one-on-one time with me. And we'll kind of talk about what's next for you, get you some next steps for moving you forward to a life that you love living. So that is the wrapping up for tonight. So looks like we have a couple of questions in the comments, which I will get to. But, just I want to wrap this up and just saying that if you want some change in your life, stopping is the best way to start. So figure out some things that you need to stop in your life and what you need to start in your life. So if you want to work with me, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. If you want to work together, I would love to hear from you. Go ahead and text that phone number. I'll repeat it one more time. So text the phrase, "I'm ready," to the phone number 305-741-4321. Make sure to include your name, your number, and I'll get you a copy of my workbook, Becoming Stronger Than Your Circumstances, to let you know that, yeah, you can do anything you put your mind to. So I love all of you. Thank you for tuning in. And if you're checking out the replay, drop some comments below and let me know your thoughts. All right. Love to you all. Bye.